Hey, all you loyalists and heretics out there. Today, I want to talk to you about the greatest 40K narrative event I have ever attended. It's a pretty bold statement. I think especially coming from me as a primarily narrative player. I've been to a lot of different narrative events. I do a lot of narrative games on my own, whether they're pickup games or the battle reports that you all have seen me make over the last several years. But a few have stood out to me. And I want to bring up one legacy one first and then dive into the one I really want to talk about. So my favorite historically has been the Apocalypse event at Adepticon. This was run by the folks at Beef and Wing out of Buffalo, New York, I think, if I'm remembering that correctly. And they did an amazing job year after year. However, they are no longer doing it. As far as I can tell, maybe they'll have a comeback, but some folks from the Renegade Open, I believe, kind of crowd have come down and have now started running narrative events at Adepticon, and those have been amazing too. But the Beef and Wing ones were great. It was the best version of Apocalypse I've ever played, and everybody just had a grand old time. In fact, we did about 100,000 point Apocalypse match in 6 hours. The new one I want to talk to you about today is the 40K narrative at the Nova Open 2022. So this event was unlike anything I've ever seen. I signed up for it months ahead of time, really not knowing what I was going to get into. Some folks always talked about how awesome the Nova Open narrative was. I had stopped in and done the GT historically and also come in and just hung out and observed it, but never had participated in the narrative event. So now that we are past the pandemic, and things are kind of back to normal again, I decided to give it a shot and try out this awesome event. So, what makes this event so great? There were 3 different factors. First, the event organizer. I can't say enough of the gentleman who put this event on. He did an absolutely amazing job at keeping us all engaged, interested, and on track. So, next most important thing is terrain. And they nailed it. We had 24 tables that were all completely customized. They were unlike anything I've ever seen, whether at a large-scale event or locally. There was just nothing to match this. The tables were absolutely beautiful, so much attention to detail, and the themes were really on point. So the tables were based upon there being 4 planets. And so each row of tables, for the most part, was its own planet and was themed as such. We had like a kind of deserty orc-like planet. We had one that was more of an agri-world. We had one that was a mysterious planet with something going on below the surface, which was really cool, and lots of psychic energy radiating off of that. And we had another one that was very urbanized, and it had a lot of civilians on it that we were trying to save. Or massacre. I'll get to that in a moment. So this was really great. You got to immerse yourself into a lot of different environments, and even within those 4 planets, there were battlefields that were very unique to everything else on the planet, but still fit in with the theme. So the third thing that really made this event stand out, and I think is the best part of it and the biggest takeaway, is the missions. There were essentially 4 layers to your game. So this made it up front, as you read the packet for the first time, it is very intimidating. I'll be honest, I showed up to the table, I sat my army, my dice down, and I looked at what I was supposed to do, and it was like walking into a brick wall almost. I was like, wow, there is a lot happening in this mission pack. What do I do? How do I keep track of all of this? It ended up being very simple once implemented. Although, like I said, it was a bit much at first, a little overwhelming, but once we got into it, it was great. So, first part is there are rules about the planet you are on. So each planet has its own special rules. Now, this isn't anything new. This is just like Warzone rules that Games Workshop puts out. So there are special things that happen, such as maybe it's -2 to casting, or maybe it's +2 to casting, or maybe some other special conditions impact the planet and affected you and your opponent's armies. So that was always really interesting. So different things could be happening on different planets. Maybe some of them were even player evoked, which was really fun to see happen. The next part is the Planetary Mission, as they call it. This is essentially a core mission. They're pretty much straight up out of the core rulebook or some other book, and it was basically like, think about it like your primary objectives, right? It was hold 1, hold 2, hold more, or something similar to that. Sometimes it was sabotage or something else. Now, the way the event was run, everyone there at the same planet played the same planetary mission, which was really cool. So we all 6 tables had the same primary mission they were playing. So we were all trying to there were 2 different alliances, and one alliance was trying to secure a foothold while the other one was trying to repel the invaders and so forth. So your planetary mission played into that. And that made it really fun and cohesive as we got together to play our missions. The next part is the battlefield missions. Now here's where it gets juicy and it gets really good. So each table is a battlefield, and each battlefield had its own mission. The way to really look at this is that it's basically your secondaries. So it would be things such as there's a downed pilot and you have to rescue the downed pilot. There's psychic energy and you have to either center yourself with it and figure out what's going on, kind of learn about it and explore it. Or maybe there's even a ritual site and you have to do something dark or glorious there. Maybe you have to seize the high ground on top of ruins, or get the Thunderhawk off of its landing pad and into the sky. There were all kinds of different battlefield missions. Each one was unique to the table you were playing on. There were 24 tables. So the event organizer wrote 24 unique missions on top of the planetary missions that we were playing. This was the bread and butter, because it was oh wow, I want to go capture fuel for the fight. I want to go become a psyker. That was one of the missions. It's probably my favorite. On and on and on. It was really wild and really fun and kept everything very interesting. I think I was fortunate enough to probably play on all but one of the most interesting of these battlefields. And I can say, taking away from that, I would do it again in a heartbeat. And I'm looking forward to hopefully coming back and playing on the one I didn't get to play on. Although I'm sure the rules will be a little different next year. The next part was this thing about fame and infamy. Now, there's a lot of different ways to score it, but there was one in particular thing that I thought was interesting about the missions. Every table had civilians on it. You could either slay the civilians and show them your cruelty, as the pack said, or you could try to guide them to safety. And so depending on what you were going for, you scored points for your fame or your infamy to do that. This was great. So if you could see real quick that things were going sideways and you weren't going to succeed on your planetary mission, or maybe you were lucky and you had control of the whole table, you could choose to engage with this and start saving civilians. Only your warlord could do it, though, so that made it very challenging. But it was a really fun mechanic to kind of add on top of it. I did try, as a Acadian player, to save as many civilians as I could. At the end of the day, I think I came up pretty short. It was hard for me to really hold the middle of a lot of the tables. I could scoot on objectives, but right were guard. I only lived one turn, typically, when an infantry unit took an objective. So it was hard for me to move my warlord around safely and to be able to do that. But I tried the best I could, and I was having a lot of fun with it. So the last part of the mission... so there were 5 layers. I think I miscounted at the start of this video. There were 5 layers to this. Was your agenda. So you got to pick one agenda from the Nephilim book to try to accomplish. There were things that guided us to pick certain objective categories, such as maybe we needed to take a foothold on the planet, so you should do the, that category that fits that. So there were themes, right? Or maybe you needed to assassinate characters, or maybe you needed to do psychic rituals, so you could take something out of the psychic category, or stop the psychic rituals. And so that added one more layer to the narrative, and that impacted how you got your experience points. If you did the objective that was relevant to the planet you were on, the category, right, then you could double the points earned for your faction for their overall agenda that they were seeking out to accomplish. If you didn't choose one, you just got your experience points and scored normal points for your faction. So it was really something you had to think about and to consider about how you choosing certain things you may or may not be good at could impact your alliance and also the narrative that we were working on during this event. What would happen is that there were warlords for each alliance, and then there were lieutenants. And the warlord and lieutenants are responsible for trying to get players to tables that they thought they would excel at or have fun doing. There were also things we had to balance out with this in order to try to fight for the different things we wanted. Like, did we want to just give up a planet or take over a planet? Did we need certain battlefield victories in order to gain intelligence or fuel or whatever else was going on? So that made it really engaging for all the players in the alliances to work together to figure this out. I end up becoming one of the warlords at this event because there was a dropout. And the folks that I were coordinating with were absolutely fantastic and made it so much fun. So the last thing I just want to bring up about this event that also made it really special was the narrative itself. The event organizer, Mr. Spencer, had wrote an absolute amazing narrative. And when we got to the very end, it left me jaw-dropped. It was great. What we did mattered. And I remember this. It was the final day. And we had made a decision to open up a portal, perhaps. We weren't sure what it was, right? And we'd even almost decided to close it permanently because my alliance was like, maybe this is something chaos. Maybe this is something we shouldn't engage with. It would be really bad and it would destroy the whole system. We decided at the last moment to open it. And because we opened it, it had this huge impact on the story. And something amazing happened. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it because I think they're going to continue the same narrative thread next year. It was absolutely fantastic. And there were all these hints. And we couldn't quite decipher what the hints meant until the very end. And then it was all revealed to us what was going on with the Secrets of Thanatrax campaign. Absolutely phenomenal. So I would highly recommend it. And I highly recommend it so much, I have adopted this same format, although a little watered down, for my local Crusade event. I'm going to talk about that in a separate video, but I'm looking forward to hearing your all's thoughts on this. So I'm going to share a link to the event packet in the video description, so please check it out, look at it yourself, and let me know what you think. I thought the complexity worked out great. You caught the hang of things after 1 or 2 games. You really went right through it, and you always felt like you were getting to do what you wanted to do for the event. I can't think of a narrative event that has ever done that well, and they just blew it out of the water. I really believe this is the future of playing Crusade if other people pick up on it, and I really hope they do. Barring some limitations, right? How do you get that much diversified terrain, especially at your local shop and for events? You really got to have a dedicated community club or an individual to kind of help out with that. But if you can make that happen, it's phenomenal. And, okay, even if you don't have all these custom tables of terrain, you can do things like make individual scatter terrain that can then be part of it. Maybe they're control stations, or they're statues that you have to consecrate or desecrate, or they're fuel pumps, or maybe they're little things you could scatter throughout almost any board to create the battlefield scenario that you're looking to do. So that could be an easy way to get around it. But other than these few little restrictions, I really think this is the way it should go. And I really believe this is the way that narrative play rules should be written. I think this is the way we should be doing it. It was really fantastic. Let me know your thoughts. Look over the event packet. Hear what I had to say. The photos that I'm going to show, in this video here too, show the boards and so forth. And let me know what you all think. Would you want to play an event like this? And if so, I hope to see you at Nova 2023 for the follow-up. All right. Emperor protects. Take care.